I have here three guys who run energy metals companies. Some may look at that and say, why would that be at a tech show? And I think this is actually one of the more interesting sectors of the tech space. Everything out there that we look at, from the three-wheeled vehicle to the VR arcade to the phones in our pockets to everything here that we're trying to actually make money from, has batteries. And those batteries we're only selling more of them. Best Buy stock is up, even though everything else in retail is down. That really comes down to, if you're looking for value, do you want to be buying the retailer, or do you want to buy the guys that are fueling the batteries that go to those retail? So here we have Mitchell Smith from Global Energy Metals, Paul Gill from Lomiko Metals, and Larry Reaugh from American Manganese. These are three very different parts of the chain that goes into what makes rechargeable batteries. And they each have an important part of that to play. But gentlemen, would you agree that folks generally wrongly look at lithium and think, well, that's where all the money's going to be?
I'll start. Well, lithium is the material that's required for lithium-ion battery. That's what we understand today. It is primarily produced in Chile and China, so it's an oligarchy of producers, about 4 producers. And it's extremely vital. That's why everyone's after it right now. So right now, all of the platforms that are out there today based on lithium-ion batteries, when you look at Tesla or some of the other ones, they're set in stone in a way because they've gone through the vetting required to get into the public and into production. So right now, it's what we have and what we have to deal with for the next little while. But there's probably better systems out there.
Mitchell, do you think lithium is a mature market, an over-mature market, or a market that is worth your time?
Yeah, I mean, I think like Paul said, I mean, the understanding of the lithium-ion battery is definitely sound, and yet there's still a lot of proliferation of application that can happen within the lithium-ion battery space. You know, there's still a lot of room for that market to grow, and I think we see that on a daily basis, and it's very well covered by the media now in terms of lithium-ion batteries and electric vehicle growth and proliferation of things like the Apple iPhone or Samsung and such. So there's still a lot of room for the lithium-ion battery space to grow. I think there's other ways to play lithium-ion batteries. Cobalt, for instance, something that we're strong supporters of. I think there's still a lot of opportunity with the other metals that are associated with the lithium-ion battery space that haven't had the same type of limelight that lithium has.
Larry, as you've watched the lithium space over the last couple of years rise and fall, and cobalt rise and fall, and graphite obviously had its moment a while back, do you sit there in your American Manganese office and pound the desk and say, "Manganese people, what's wrong with you all?"
Okay, the name is a little misleading because we're interested in recycling batteries. Certainly we follow the lithium, cobalt, manganese, nickel, even the aluminum markets, because that's what we get back out of a battery. We have a process that'll get 100% of that. We will be producers of all those metals at some point. We're going to go into the pilot plant stage. What I like about lithium is it's a solid, embedded technology that everybody uses. And that's going to be around for a while. Some of the other metals may go up and may go down, like cobalt's going down. We're looking at the lower end of the scale for profits in American Manganese. We do have manganese projects. It's a critical metal, and we do have interest from the Department of Defense in the United States. We may come to something on that, but that's not our focus at the time. We're focused on, getting our battery technology, our recycling technology out there, And, we did a little study on Apple, for example. You look at your little iPhone and your tablets and all that, and those small batteries that are in there. They contain $350 million worth of cathode material. And that's a big market. Certainly we would like to have the opportunity to bring Apple in and show them our technology when it's up and at the pilot stage or in the first commercial plant stage.
Paul, you've played around in the graphene space for a while. There was a hot moment for graphene that we get from a lot of things when people first learn about them. Do you think that the glisten is off the rose on the graphene side, or is it just beginning?
Well, yeah, we formed two different companies related to graphene. One was Graphene 3D Lab, which trades today under the symbol GGG. It had quite a interesting run. It was attempting to use a 3D printer to print graphene for different capacities. And their real moment in the sun was when they were able to print elements of a lithium ion battery, a lithium graphene battery from a 3D printer. Fascinating stuff, very early stage, and I think it has applications in the future. So we're really interested in those applications. Our other company that we formed that we helped fund through Lomiko is Graphene Energy Storage. And this one is specifically working with Stony Brook University in Long Island, New York, and Brookhaven Labs National Laboratory that's up in northern part of Long Island. And they're looking at the energy storage capacity of graphene, which is fascinating. And I think when Chris started, we talked at the beginning, we talked about batteries, batteries themselves, but energy storage is much more than that, because you think of a dam, a hydroelectric dam, that's really energy stored. You think of solar power coming in that needs to be stored as sometimes it's stored as hot water. So you have to think a little bit beyond the box. Even oil is energy that's stored in a certain way, in a carbon form. So I think there's a interesting future in applying some of these very interesting new technologies that are very, very new, but we're down the road. Right now, lithium-ion batteries are where they're at, and I think that what Larry is doing is fascinating stuff. Getting recycling of those batteries set up so that when there's a need for them, you can get the materials out of them. Cobalt is definitely required. There's supply and demand issues you can always look into on that. And I think the material that, and I sorry to pat myself on the back a little bit, but I think the material that hasn't really shone in the sun yet and will, I think, in the next little while, because it's much in demand now, is graphite, because you need 10 to 15 times more graphite in a lithium-ion battery than you need lithium. And even Elon Musk calls a lithium-ion battery a nickel graphite battery. So I think it's an interesting time. It's a much larger market than some of the lithium and cobalt markets. It has things going on in steel making and stuff like that, but I think that's something to watch out for, definitely in the future, but fascinating stuff.
So I think I talked to you a couple of years ago about graphene, and you were telling me, I think it was you were telling me a story that, you could take a micron's thin layer of it and you could put it around a tank and you could hit that tank with a missile and it wouldn't blow up. And I said, wow, that's amazing, that's fantastic, why aren't we doing this right now? And I think it was you that said, well, because the tank would bounce down the street for about half a kilometer and the guy inside would become a smudge. We're obviously still a long way from where things are going to land, but we are using a technology in lithium-ion batteries that is, 25, 35 years old, and there are companies that are coming forward with new technologies that may replace that. Mitchell, do you think that, especially with cobalt being a metal that's difficult to get to and has political issues around it, do you think that there's a threat that the systems as we know it will come to a point soon where they experience a big change in tech that rearranges everything?
Yeah, and I think there's no question about it that there's a significant amount of capital that's being spent on research and development for alternative chemistries that are involved in the lithium-ion batteries, and you know, I'm the first to say that substitution or thrifting of cobalt will happen. And there's chemistries now, the 532 and 622 and the NCM batteries are shifting towards you know, more nickel-dominant 811 chemistry. But I think what's really important is, at least on the cobalt side, is that the technology that's being used right now is proven, and for the foreseeable future, it will be used. And of all the mega factories that are being built right now, you know, cobalt is still very much a required metal for that chemistry. You know, I think when you look at groups like Volkswagen, for instance, who are coming out with new lines and pushing electric vehicles, you know, they don't want another scandal. They don't want a thermal gate and spend you know, a couple $100 less on the battery chemistry because and result in you know, batteries exploding, etc. So you know, cobalt is certainly something that is of critical importance. With that being said, there's also a requirement to feed that supply of cobalt, and you know, right now the majority of the world's cobalt, around 60%, comes from the very political and politically unstable DRC in Africa. You know, we see that there needs to be a diversification away from just one country supplying the majority of cobalt. And so, you know, we as Global Energy Metals are looking at safe jurisdictions to be able to provide a pipeline of cobalt for that future demand as part of this cycle of lithium-ion battery technology.
Larry, you've come up with a means through the recycling of existing resources that makes you a little bit platform agnostic when it comes to what's in short supply or what's in a lot of supply. What point do you think we need to get to in terms of cost to mining as relating to cost to what you do, where we could basically stop mining and switch it entirely over to recycling what we already have?
Well, I'm a believer in recycling because that does reduce a lot of requirements for mining. I don't know if it'll ever reach the point where you can stop mining. It's, you know, because you're going to have an increased amount of vehicles, you're going to need increased cobalt, you're going to need increased nickel. I would just to repeat myself quickly, what I'm saying is that I don't think that mining will ever stop, but it will certainly reduce the requirement of mining, and recycling will fill, I could see, a 40, 50, 60% gap in the future needs for the metals. You got to remember that lithium-ion is only one use for nickel and cobalt, and there's other competing technologies out there that require cobalt, that require nickel, that require manganese, all of these things, and they're increasing as their technology increases. So I don't see an end to this. I think that we're at the very cusp of an explosion in the amount of EVs that are going to be out there, the amount of batteries that are going to end up waste dumps, and we have a solution. We can get 100% of it back. And you got to remember that all our research work is not done by a couple guys in the back office. It's done by an independent research firm, second largest in Canada, and what they give us, we report. So there's no chance for any hanky-panky in our results, and you know, that's patent pending. I just see there's a huge future for us.
I've been to they call it an urban mining facility out in Richmond called Roden 8 that has a pilot plant that you know, they crush circuit boards and computers and put things through sonar, shaking, and extract a series of different metals and then eventually leach it in a warehouse to get. And I was in there with a team of investors that were very non-trusting going in. It seemed like it was going to be something that would never be profitable and never would actually. But by the time you got through this tour and saw the actual end result, it was really clear that for a lot of metals, it would almost be cheaper now to do the work of ferreting them out of things that they're already in, rather than digging into the ground and having to move tons of ground. Would you say that your tech is months away, years away, decades away, days away from where it needs to be, where we can go straight to you and get what we need?
Okay, you're talking about how far away we are on really commercializing the enterprise? We're probably a year and a half away, but it's going to be a small effort, but there's a lot of money involved in the bottom line, so we're anxious to get that moving quickly. Our next step will be taking scraps. I don't know if you understand what scraps are, but if you're a battery manufacturer, you make cathode material on aluminum foils, and you make the graphene, like Paul was saying, on the copper foils. And what we do is we take the scraps. We have a method of dissolving the glues and going into our circuit. So scrap market could be as high as 100 tons a month. We know we can get our hands on 30 tons a month, but scraps are what's left over when you're manufacturing. It could be 5%, it could be 10% of the total battery manufacturing, and that's the big number that we don't have to disassemble. And there's a lot of money involved in scraps. So I'd like to see us build our 3-ton-a-day commercial plant in the next year and a half. That'll pay for itself, about a $10 million cost in less than a year. And then we can start looking at 30 tons. The cost won't be $100 million. It'll be more like about $30 million. And pay for that and eventually handle all the scrap market while we're getting ready to disassemble batteries.
Mitchell, in the meantime, you're looking to dig it out of the ground. Tell us about Global Energy Metals and where you're at right now in terms of getting to a place where the ups and downs in the cobalt market can be of your benefit.
Sure. So Global Energy Metals was formed by a group of like-minded individuals who have been involved in cobalt-specific space for the past decade. We built the company to act as an investment vehicle into the into cobalt assets, and we have a growth stage exploration project in Mount Isa, Australia. It has a resource on it. We're doing expansion work, metallurgical work to ensure that it can actually meet the battery requirements that we're all quite keen on obviously being able to supply to. More so, the company acts as this investment vehicle to allow for exposure for investors like you to get involved into the battery space through the metals associated with batteries. Specifically for us, it's cobalt. We're looking at jurisdictionally safe pro-mining regions of the world. We just recently announced acquisition of some historic producing mines in Nevada. We have a partnership with a property in Canada, like I said, in Australia as well. And we have a very long-term positive view on the cobalt space, and look forward to being involved with the supply chain.
Paul, Lomiko, plus all the other things you're involved in. 2 minutes, go.
Well, primarily Lomiko's located in Quebec, about an hour and a half north of Montreal, and the key there is to have a facility or a mining operation that's close to an international port like Montreal. And what happens is you can ship that material out, and the cost to the customer is really freight, the FOB cost, the freight on board. That's the ultimate cost. Too many people think about well, taking it out of the ground is going to cost me this much and transporting it to a port is going to cost me this much. That's not the real cost. The real cost is getting it to the customer, and you have to have a low cost when you are doing any kind of mass shipping or business. So that's our main goal, is to get the lowest possible cost on the graphite. Now, on the graphite itself, we've done 125 drill holes into the Lalute property in a very, very good area where there's high-grade graphite. So our recent results were in the 16 or 17% range with that graphite, which is tested to have about 1/3 large flake graphite, which is very, very useful in the battery industry and in the steelmaking industry. So we're developing a play. We're in the middle of a lot of big companies. We've got Imerys Carbon and Graphite, which is a multi-billion-dollar company out of Switzerland that is just located north of us and has the only graphite mine operating in North America. There is Mason Graphite, which is now trading at about $1.20 and has 250 million market cap. Northern Graphite at about 50 million market cap, trading about 30-40 cents. And Nouveau Monde, which is just recently put out a pre-economic assessment, is trading about 30 cents and about 70 million market cap. Our market cap is $5 million. So we're really going to get that value jump when we create a pre-economic assessment, which defines for the auditors exactly what the value of our property is. So we're at a very interesting time. We are, at this point, I think, hit a low in our stock, and certainly are looking to build up. Now, beyond that, we certainly have a number of other things that we're doing. We have Prometheus cryptocurrency, which we own 20% of, smart home devices, which we own 18% of. That's in the IoT field. Prometheus is in the cryptocurrency mining and blockchain field. And so, and also 40% of graphene energy storage, which I mentioned before. So a lot to talk about, a lot of things that we're active in, but I think you have to look at the very broad picture here. We're in the beginning of an electric vehicle revolution in which 20 years from now, 50% of the cars on the road will be electric. Think of all the materials you need. We have a great opportunity in Canada to provide that material in Quebec, which has lithium and graphite, and we hope to be part of that.
Graphite and crypto. What, you couldn't find a blockchain deal? 2017 called, Paul.
Coming soon.
Guys, I suspect that one of the things that keeps the mining, the resources sector a little bit underwater now is that we have a new investor class that's really looking around at places to put their money. And the old mining way of, we're going to raise some money, we're going to get a permit, we're going to stick a hole in the ground, we're going to raise more money, we're going to stick another hole in the ground. The newer wave of investors are used to the cannabis flying and you know, Tilray yesterday, they're used to blockchain coming and disappearing. The 5-year chain of events that are required to get to production is a little bit more of a tough sell to that new crowd. Do you see, especially in the energy metal space, the end user of the products maybe coming through all of that and financing the exploration at the beginning, maybe as a means of fast-tracking and taking the uncertainty out of things?
Yeah, I can answer that if you don't mind. Yeah, you know, there's certainly a lot of the end user groups and that are looking up the chain to the resource companies and being able to secure and lock in material contracts or rights to offtake of the material, so that they can secure their the requirements for their battery or and energy storage needs. I mean, we have a partnership with a group, Beijing East Spring Material Technology Company in out of China, who supply material to Samsung and Panasonic and BYD for the cathode use. So you know, they're starting to look up chain, and I think across, you know, in not only with cobalt but with lithium and such, that they are looking to finance or put money into companies that have promising exploration or development projects.
Larry, I'm imagining that with what you're putting together, that the companies that may be the biggest suppliers of the scrap that you're looking as feedstock would also be the biggest buyers of the recycled materials once you've gone through the process. Have you had any early discussions with those potential buyers and sellers?
Okay, I'll make a broad statement about everything. When we talk about scraps, that's just a way to get your foot in the door and maybe get up to $500 million worth of revenue. Right now, we have a lot of interest out of Asia, mostly in China, Japan, and South Korea, on our recycling process, because what they're looking at, of course, is recycling their batteries and having a source of supply. We are still in the mining business. We have a manganese deposit in Arizona, and we have a high-grade gold cobalt deposit up out of New Hazelton here in BC that is being worked on by an Australian company. So we're very aware of who needs what. I mean, I guess just to maybe broaden that statement a little bit more, we're urban miners, and mining is still on the shelf as far as we're concerned, and we will hope that we'll make the best profits. I mean, you couldn't find higher grades than the lithium-ion batteries contain in deposits that you find in nature.
Fair enough. Gentlemen, I wanted to ask each of you, if you had to pivot out of the particular area of energy storage that you're in, if you had to pivot, what is the thing that you look at that you think makes a lot of sense right now? Whether it be another metal, whether it be a technology, whether it be a different way of doing things.
For me, I think I think again the world is electrifying, and I think if there was a business that I would be looking to invest into, it would be something along the lines of future charging stations. As you know, for the last 80 or so years, we've had gas stations on every corner. I think that the world is going to need more charging stations as there are electric vehicles on the road. So for me, it would be more of on a commercial basis. But I've spent over a decade now into Cobalt, and it's just becoming the flavor, so to speak. So I'm pretty happy with where I am right now.
Larry, if someone was giving away lithium properties, would you jump all over it?
Well, we're out of time, and I'm hoping that I explained our process enough that you would understand it. Certainly, we're very bullish on Cobalt, and we expect that this company will be making money. We're happy with our results so far, so I wish you all a good day.
Well said. Paul?
Well, if we had to pivot, probably jump into a cannabis deal right now. I mean, it's some pretty amazing stuff going on.
We should talk. I think I know a few people.
Yeah, over some beverages.
Gentlemen, I want to thank you for your time. This is obviously an evolving discussion. This is a very different discussion than would have taken place 6 months ago or a year ago. I hope we can do it again in another 6 months or a year and see where we're all at.